So much talk about wide receiver one. Well, that is Christian Kirk. Whether y'all like it or not, I'll give you reasons why you should, and reasons why you might need to be concerned on this edition of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up? Thank y'all and welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I'm the host of the Locked On Jaguars, and my name is Tony Wiggins. And here it's your team every day, and we always thank you for making us your first listen. I'm going to remind you to go on over to the YouTube page and make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, and also hit the bell so that you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Also, make sure wherever you listen to your audio podcast, you tap into that location and find out when I drop so you don't miss an episode of Locked On Jaguars. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, lots of news today. By the way, shout out to our everydayers for joining us every day, and my homeboy TJ. He's like my cousin too, a distant cousin, but TJ is in the Air Force and headed out to go for a couple of weeks away and wanted a shout out. So we gave it to him. There you go, my man Tyrone Johnson. Good luck to you out there, you and your family. All right. So look, a lot of stuff to go into today. I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to be transparent with you. I was sidetracked a little bit by the news of the trade of Stephon Diggs going to the Houston Texans. And I decided to give some love because of a post I saw from Christian Kirk. I don't know what people were saying about Christian Kirk, but evidently Christian Kirk put out a post and said, "How come I catch so many strays anytime anything goes on in the hood?" So it got me thinking that we need to put some respect on Christian Kirk's name. And I said respect, not respect. Respect, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, as the late, great Aretha Franklin sang about. Put some respect on Christian Kirk's name. When Christian Kirk got hurt last year, this offense really, really struggled. They did not hide and mask the deficiencies on that line, on the offensive line, the way that they were able to when Christian Kirk was there. They had those problems the entire year. They were hidden a little bit when Kirk went out. Or when he was there, and then when he went out, you couldn't hide him anymore. Maybe teams felt that they could cover the team better, but we're going to find a way to put some respect on his name, right? But then we're going to look at the elephant in the room. Is it enough? Evidently, the Jaguars don't think so because they keep trying to add people to Christian Kirk, and they realize that they need more. So two things can be true at one time. He can deserve your respect as a wide receiver who goes out and puts up number one type statistics and make some incredible plays and has some incredible play during the season. But you can also think that it's not enough in order for the Jaguars to ultimately get to where they're trying to go. All right, we'll look at that in segment 2. And in segment 3, if it isn't enough, what do they do now? That's brought on by the fact that whether you believe rumors or not, it seems like they've been trying to add a wide receiver for a couple of years now. What do they do and where do they go? All right, so I'm going to be positive today. I kind of let the rabbit out of the bag and told people exactly what it was that I was going to be bringing them here shortly. And everyone assumes that I'm going to be condescending because of Christian Kirk being the number one. This is what we need to get out of. All right, we need to get out of, and I know y'all think I'm laughing, and I am. Y'all probably looking at me going, "Wig, stop it." No, I'm dead serious. And if you're listening, just understand that I'm dead serious. We need to start focusing on facts and not feelings, right? We can have feelings about the facts, but when somebody speaks the truth, they're not joking, unless they say they are, right? We're going to speak the facts. The fact is, two things can be true at one time. Christian Kirk is a very good player. Christian Kirk is more than lived up to the expectations that were bestowed upon him when the Jaguars went out and signed him to the deal that they went out and signed him to. And he's a critical part, has been a critical part of the Jaguars' victories. And had he not been the receiver on the team, without knowing, without coming up with some scenario where what they've done is if you replaced him with somebody else. No, if they didn't have Christian Kirk, they'd be worse off. I believe it. I believe all of that. And I think we should show appreciation for the guys that come out here every single week when they're healthy, especially, and perform. And Christian Kirk is not a guy who has not performed for the most part when given a chance. That being said, let's talk about some other things. He didn't necessarily endear himself to fans 2 or 3 weeks into the season saying we need to get out of here. And when they were 1-2 and they were leaving, he's like, oh, we need to get out of here. Maybe we need to get out of town. Got a brand new facility. I went and seen it. There was no reason to even say that. And I pointed that out back then. There's no reason to talk about getting out of here when you got all the privacy in the world that you need in a state-of-the-art, world-class, couple of $100 million facility. Why would you want to go anywhere? Where you going to go where you're going to duck this smoke? You can't, right? Christian Kirk also has had some critical drops in key moments, but I give him an A for effort. He's not the biggest guy, not the longest guy, so some of those drops can be expected. Jamal Agnew had them, and plus other people drop passes around the league. The dudes we talk about, I've seen Devontae Adams drop one every now and then. I've seen Stephon Diggs drop passes every now and then. Christian Kirk is also a very, very, very good teammate, a very good teammate, a real good ambassador for the Jacksonville Jaguars. However, Christian Kirk represents something that we need to discuss here and have a family discussion about. And that is all of the superlatives that I heap on him are true. He's earned it. He's earned it. But I can say those things, and I can also put 2 and 2 together that the Jaguars have traded a third and then some change, a couple of late round picks for 1 year of Calvin Ridley. That's not what they intended to do, but that's what happened. They thought they were going to re-sign Calvin Ridley this year after signing Gabe Davis. They thought they still had Calvin Ridley. Turns out he went to the Tennessee Titans, who are in the division, right? So that's them going out and getting a receiver that everybody feels is better, right? Calvin Ridley. Everybody felt like he was better. That's not a secret. Trying to retain a guy that they had already given up draft picks for, who people believe is better. I don't think anyone thinks that Gabe Davis is a better receiver. I think Gabe Davis gives a different look to the room, and he gives some versatility and adds different things to the room. But just by the simple fact that because they didn't get Christian Kirk, then it appeared that they were angling towards making a deal. And if they are, they are. It ain't done yet, but with Brandon Ayuk, with the 49ers to get Brandon Ayuk in a trade. I heard Pittsburgh making that same deal too, trying to. And Jaguar fans are like, nah, man, let's just draft a dude. Then there's been rumors and rumblings, and I don't know how true they are, but I know fans and some media people are clamoring for them to trade up into the top 8, top 9, which would definitely cost them this year's second-round pick and possibly even more. And they want them to go after Rome Odunze. Some people said Malik Neighbors, others said Rome Odunze. Either one of them is fine with me. They're a little bit different. I'm a fan of both, but it's more or less what you're adding them to. Like, you could say what you want about the Stephon Diggs trade. I think the biggest thing that you look at when they're adding them to Houston is this. Bobby Slovik's offense, that's one thing. The fact that their quarterback plants that foot and lets that ball go, and whatever the read is, that's what he's going to do. A probable Hall of Fame player playing at left tackle. Other really good players on the offensive line. And here's the thing. They got Nico Collins, who's their big-bodied receiver, and then they got Tank Dell, who is their take it off the top fast receiver. I think what they're adding him to, not where he is age-wise, not the attitude stuff that we've seen in the past, what they're adding him to for the next couple of years. Like he ain't raised no hell in Buffalo when he first got there. That's what they're getting, and that's what scares the daylight out of people if you look at it on paper. So while we can be honest about Christian Kirk, we have to also be honest about what the Jaguars have been able to do as opposed to what they have tried to do. Are they weaponizing Trevor Lawrence enough? Is it enough? If Christian Kirk is your number one and they are either unable to go up and make a trade into the top 10, and they take a corner or something else in round one, and they're not able to get Brandon Ayuk because it takes two to tango, what on earth are they going to do? And is that enough? And how does that look? I'm going to tell you about it all here in segment 2 in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. Gametime is the sponsor for today's show. Now, look at here, man. If y'all are sitting around trying to figure out where you're going to get tickets for events, how are you going to get them, when do you going to get them, when do you have time to get them, Gametime is the place that you need to call. You need to download that app right now because all of the answers you want are going to be answered for you. You can pick out any specific game or matchup that you'd love to attend. That's one. Last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, comedy shows, whatever, they got it. I had somebody asking me about Cat Williams. All you got to do, I told them, check the Gametime app, man. They got them. Last minute deals, and you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. That's right. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price is guaranteed. All right, second segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. When news comes out that I know is unfavorable, I've realized I'll touch on it here on Locked On Jaguars. But the main thing is I want to always focus on us. I want to look back and focus on us before panic sets in, right? Because Christian Kirk is not going to guard Stephon Diggs. That's just not the way that this works. Trevor Lawrence ain't going to be playing ping pong against Will Levis. Not on Sunday in the fall. That doesn't matter. And he also won't be playing basketball or shooting golf against CJ Stroud. Shout out to Anthony Richardson. I didn't know what to think about you. You were hurt. You were a young kid, but I ain't going to leave you out because that'll bite me too. And he ain't going to have a slam dunk contest against Anthony Richardson. How about that? They play against the defense. And our defense plays against these teams' offense. So when I ask the question, is it enough? Do we have enough with Christian Kirk potentially being the best receiver on the team for what feels like the third year in a row, even though Calvin Ridley was here last year? It was taking him some time to get going after a real hard start. It looked like Christian knew exactly what they were going to do. And then Zay Jones wasn't there, so there was a lot of things going on, right? But it does make me have a bit of self-reflection. I've mentioned the fact that it appears that the Jaguars went after Calvin Ridley, tried to keep Calvin Ridley, gave up some compensation for Calvin Ridley, signed Gabe Davis to a contract. Then they are rumored to have participated in discussions for Brandon Ayuk, and not to say it won't happen, but it hasn't happened. Didn't get involved in Deontay Johnson in that deal. Didn't get involved in that trade. Okay. I wonder if they even knew about it. And I wonder if they even knew that Stephon Diggs could be had. And if they did know about it, did they want him? And if they didn't want him, was it all because of the attitude, or was it because of age? What was it? Because Stephon Diggs is about a year older than Calvin Ridley. if we're going to keep it real. And that's for Titan fans that are around here peacocking because Stephon Diggs is older. He might be just barely a year older, if that, for the receiver you got too. Is it enough? Is having a dude who was on his way, Christian Kirk had 750 yards receiving last year. He was on his way to another 1,000-yard season, in my opinion. Is that enough? No, it's not. But the draft isn't done. My only thing is Trent Baalke doesn't have a good track record of picking college wide receivers. And in a year where there's so much value for wideouts and wide receivers, and I thought the Jaguars needed 2, they've added 1, and they didn't retain another one. I thought if they kept Calvin Ridley, they needed 2 more receivers. That's just me, because I'm thinking with my championship optimism hat on, as opposed to thinking about, well, can they line up and compete? I don't want them to just line up and compete. They've done that 2 years in a row. And I don't want anybody to sit here and talk about 2015, 16, 17. That is so far out of my memory. That once that stuff ends, and I know for a lot of people it's not that way, and you probably need to get over it. Once that stuff ends, I don't think about it anymore when it comes to my thought process. I give this organization a total start once they, and even though it wasn't a total start, it was kind of a total start, with the exception that Trent Baalke was still going to be here. But once Doug Peterson took over this team as the head coach. So if we look at Doug Peterson and we look at the receivers that he had when he won the Super Bowl, and somebody told me today, Doug Peterson, Mike McCarthy, and there may be a few other ones. I don't know how much, Sean Payton, how much more mileage they're going to get out of winning that Super Bowl wig. And that's a question that we'll probably ponder. And a matter of fact, we will ask that question tomorrow. Because when we keep trying to compare it and saying that, well, the guy won the Super Bowl, he's seen it before. I'm more interested in the things that Doug saw with Andy Reid all of those years, even in Philly and Kansas City, than that 1 year in Philadelphia. And that's why I kind of believe that at some point they're going to get it right if they're getting the input for the offensive skill position players from Doug Peterson. The same way that everyone is wondering if all of these guys are going to match up with what Ryan Nielsen does as a defensive coordinator, and they're co-signing every single thing that's going on and thinking that the imprint for that comes from the DNA of Ryan Nielsen and Trent is just following along. I need people to keep that same energy when it comes to Doug Peterson. So let's just say Gabe Davis is your Alshon Jeffrey, your bigger bodied receiver, even though Jeffrey was known as a high point artist, and that's not really what Gabe does. Let's just assume that's it. Let's just say for that Super Bowl year that Nelson Aguilar, Christian Kirk is Nelson Aguilar. And if we want to go there, I'm going to tell you right now, yeah, a better version of that. Maybe not as long. I think Aguilar might be a little bit longer, a little bit lengthy. At 5'11", 6 feet, but speedy receiver, can play in the slot, can get in and out of breaks, is better than people gave him credit for, right? That leaves Zay Jones. What is Zay Jones? Well, Zay Jones is probably the guy that they were trying to replace, to be honest with you. They were probably trying to get better and replace Zay Jones. They're not going to do that with a rookie. Even if a rookie is very good and shows a lot of promise, it's very doubtful in the NFL that a rookie is going to come in and immediately, unless you're Puka Nacua, put up a whole bunch of numbers that'll make people say, damn, we should have got him. But they can make plays. The question is Christian Kirk enough for the Jaguars as the number one receiver for the Jaguars to line up and be competitive? Yes, he's proven that. They've done that for the most of 2 years. Is Christian Kirk enough as the number one receiver to be the best receiver on a team that wins the Super Bowl? No. So here's the thing that they do here in Jacksonville that drives me crazy. They spend so much money, and they do spend a lot of money in free agency. They spend so much money on getting things that have value. And let's just say you have a refrigerator where you can only fit 53 players in there, right? Well, the Jaguars, let's just say they're 5 players away. There ain't no more room in the refrigerator. The reason why you can't make trades for a guy like this, and I don't even know if Trent knew, that's another problem that we'll talk about. in segment 3 is his ability to get compensation and that makes sense and make deals. But let's just say if you load your refrigerator up, and we're going to base these things on a scale of 1 to 10. If we say Christian Kirk's a 7.5 and Zay Jones is a 6.5, and let's just say Gabe Davis is a 7 or a 7 3/4, there's no room for a 9 unless you pick him in the draft, because most of them don't walk around out here anyway. And that's about what Stephon Diggs is at this stage of his career. He's a 9+. There's no room for a dude like that if you have all of these other guys on salary making this kind of money. And time again with the Jaguars, when I say at various positions, well, what about adding this guy? Well, what about adding this guy? Fans can sit and tell me 2 or 3 guys that they already have that play that position and why it makes no sense to upgrade that spot. So what we get is we get a situation where nothing's ever upgraded, but everything is just kept to be running nice and normal. You got a 20-car garage with 20 middle of the road cars over there, but yet still you're competing against muscle cars and Hemis and Ferraris. So I ask, is it enough? The answer to my question is no. Here's a bigger question. Why can't they seem to go out and get those type of players? I'll answer that in a few minutes or a few seconds in segment number 3, but not before I ask you if you're still watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming and yelling. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the Free Fire Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm going to tell you why I think the Jaguars have a hard time making deals that shock and awe and surprise you. And if that's something that they can fix, yeah, they can fix it. All right. I'll get back to that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. I got to let you know about today's sponsor, which is FanDuel, man. FanDuel is the absolute truth. I have done so well at FanDuel, and you can too. Here's what's happening. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on the action, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on the tourney, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. Read the information and the literature on the players. Look at their advanced stats. It's all right there on FanDuel, and they can help you win big, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Segment number 3 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen. We're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, Christian Kirk, and their wide receiver core. So to those that thought I was going to sit here and lambaste the Jaguars because Christian Kirk is still their #1 receiver, I'm not going to do that. It's just that what I'm trying to mentally prepare you guys to do is think about a world where that is also true on opening day. Because unless they go out and get a first-round draft pick wide receiver, the likelihood that somebody that they pick after that comes in right away in game 1 as the #1 wideout is really, really unlikely, right? That means he'd have to dominate in the preseason, and he'd have to, win over the hearts of the team and win over the locker room, and then come out and do the same thing early in the year. Can it be possible? Yeah, it can be possible, but it's not probable, because that's just not a position that Trent Baalke has traditionally drafted well. And even though the draft is chock full of wide receivers, the league just ain't cut like that most of the time unless there's a proven track record, like Cooper Kupp was Puka Nakua's example in Los Angeles, right? But in Jacksonville, it's been a little bit different. How do you feel if you're Trevor Lawrence? I think that's a question we have to ask. Because I heard rumors even last year that Trevor was unhappy that they hadn't gone out and really upgraded his line and his weapons. Now that's just it could be true, it could be not true. The people I heard it from said, yeah, he ain't real happy, right? So if he's not happy, and I want you to look at that from this prism, and not just necessarily me or not whatever your fandom thinks about. I want us to all kind of put ourselves in Trevor Lawrence's shoes and not think about what will he say, because it would be probably wrong and out of line for Trevor Lawrence to publicly come out and criticize and say anything, because he has to play with those people that we're talking about, right? You never do coaching outside of the locker room, and you whatever you feelings you have about your team, you kind of keep that to yourself. The thing that I want to know is this: do you think he thinks that they have done all they can? Now, if you answer that yes, because you know of the conversations that the Jaguars have had, ask yourself this: how come other teams can have those same conversations and end up getting what they want and the Jaguars can't? Too many times the Jaguars find themselves on a bad side of a deal. Too many times they find themselves, even if the deal is almost the same, but it's 51 to 49 one way or the other, the Jaguars always seem to be 49. Even when they make a bunch of draft day trades like they did last year to get extra picks, then they tell you that they were trying to get rid of those picks to move back up for other people, and they weren't able to. How come they were able to make picks early to obtain more picks, but they weren't able to get off of those picks later? Is it the negotiator? Is it that Trent is the type of person that asks for too much and just doesn't have the tact and the negotiating skills to actually get anything close to that? Does Trent play hardball when it comes to giving guys guaranteed money in free agency? One could say yes and one could say no. The one thing the Jaguars have done very well, like a number of teams around the league, is sign players and be able to kick it down the road a little bit into void years. And then if that doesn't work, 2 or 3 years later, they're right back into free agency in a pretty good cap situation. That is about to change with Trevor Lawrence's number going up and being a paid franchise quarterback at 45, 50 million a year. That's also going to change. Even if they don't work out a deal with Josh Allen for this coming season, they're going to have a hard time getting players in free agency, even the ones like the ones that they've already signed. So if they aren't able to get a receiver that is able to be the number one guy, whether it be through trade or through drafting, what do they do? Yeah, that's it. You see the silence that was just there? There's nothing else for them to do if they can't do that and they fail to do it, which means that would mean that they have not only failed the franchise, but they failed Trevor Lawrence and have been unable to figure out a way, any kind of way, to get him what he needs and what all of the other really, really good receivers or quarterbacks around the league have gotten. And that is a proven, dependable weapon that's going to be here for more than one calendar season. That's fact. That's not feelings. That's the real deal. I can feel that they've fallen short. I can feel that enough is enough, and now we have to depend on the guy to draft a wide receiver where that guy doesn't draft wide receivers very well. I can feel all of that and still say, Christian Kirk, you were worth the money that they paid for you. Christian Kirk, you are appreciated in Jacksonville. Christian Kirk, it ain't your fault. They keep trying to go out here and get some help so it can ease things up for you and your quarterback, but they just haven't been able to do it. And one of the reasons I keep getting on them about drafting players and keep getting on them about being good beyond the first round, because first round is easy scouting. And that was told to me by a guy who scouted for over 25 years. And every time I throw him a name over the years, what he's done is, yeah, he can play, but that's easy scouting. Give me 5 names of dudes that aren't in anybody's top 50. And that's where the Jaguars have to start, at least hitting and nailing some of these picks. I'm not going to get all upset today, because the thing is if they can't trade for one, they're going to have to get one in free agency in terms of a wide receiver. And Trent Baalke has showed you repeatedly that is not, throughout his career, something that he is capable of doing. Therefore, I am going into this season so far, if there is no Brandon Ayuk trade, if there is no trade for T. Higgins, and I doubt that there will be, because they need other stuff. And if they trade for one of those guys, they got to give up resources that are going to allow them to get the other things. I'm telling you right now, I don't think they're going to take a receiver in the first round. If they do, then I hope it works, because he's never drafted a receiver that has really worked. If they do go into the season with Christian Kirk being their main target and Evan Ingram being their next main target and Gabe Davis being their third target, I will honestly tell you that it is not enough. That is not going to win you a championship. And that's not going to get you close to winning a championship. And if that's the case, the only way the Jaguars will ever get wide receivers once they give Trevor Lawrence a contract extension is to change general managers. All right, there you go. So have a nice day. Enjoy your day. We're going to talk more about this compensation, and we're going to talk about all of these things as we continue to move forward to monitor what the Jaguars do. Until then, y'all take care of each other. We'll see you next time on Locked On Jaguars.